Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Bovin. The producer is not here with us tonight. Like I said, he is off busy doing some other work detail duty things, and we will just leave it at that. Honestly, he hasn't, though, put in his time off with me yet. I haven't seen the request for him to take the time off to go do these other jobs. So I might have to give him a little bit of a notice saying, hey, if you don't give me your time off slips, you're going to get fired. No, I kid here, but the producer is not here tonight. If this is your first time tuning into the show, welcome. We do a live show Monday through Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Each week we cover a new state. This week we are in Minnesota. We do ask, though, as the listener and the audience out there, to put your quarter in the slot machine. What I mean by that is I believe hunting is a dying sport, a dying lifestyle, and we are doing our best that we can to help promote, spread the word about hunting. And all we ask everyone out there is to help share the show. Give us one new audience, one new fan. We appreciate it. Everyone out there that has been doing it, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your love and support. It means a lot to us here at Whitetail Advantage. We also are on you can find us on Waypoint TV on their app. And you can also find our audio version on any of your podcast listening platforms. But that being said, we are a part of the pro staff with Gillipuck. So if you use the code GP10, GP10, you can get 10% discount off their products. And with that being said, I'd like to run a quick little ad for them. So use the code GP10, GP10, get 10% off their products. And as you all know, I'm a huge fan of MAGNUS broadheads. I've said it before, we are no way sponsored, partner with them in any way. I just love those MAGNUS broadheads. If you haven't tried them yet, go try them. Everyone that I have talked to that hasn't tried them before, that started to use them now, they love them. So make sure you go at least try them out, practice out with them, see what you feel. And with that being said, enough of my boring mumbo jumbo intro stuff. Let's get into tonight's show. It's Tuesday, June 4th. It's episode 76. We're in Minnesota. Sorry, my weird laptop over here, Siri wants to start talking to me, and she's pissing me off. So heck with you, Siri. No one likes you. Anyways, enough of me talking. Let's get to our guest tonight, Jordan.
How's it going, Brett? Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, thanks, brother. Thanks for taking time to come on.
Yes, sir.
For anyone that doesn't know you, can you give a little background about yourself, brother?
So, my name is Jordan Van Overbeke. I'm from Marshall, Minnesota, born and raised. 38 years old, and I started hunting when I started going with my uncle and my stepdad and my dad when I was able to pretty much walk or able to go with them. I killed my first deer when I was 10 years old with the bow and arrow. And yeah.
I remember when I was young and I couldn't get out hunting yet. I was like 5 to 10, whatever, in that ballpark. And we moved out to where my parents live now. And I just remember as soon as the sun started to set, my face was glued to the back of the sliding glass door. Just like, where's Dad? Mom, what the fuck's Dad at? You said he was going to be here when the sun goes down. I don't see him coming up the hill. And sure enough, he comes in. I'm like, did you see anything? Did you see anything? I miss those days, honestly.
Absolutely. Yep.
My
So the first deer that I ended up shooting when I was 10 years old, I originally started off, my uncle said, well, you can go hunting with me as soon as you can pull 35 pounds back. So I spent that summer, doing push-ups and whatever I could. I was just so excited to get out and go hunting with my uncle. But the first deer I ended up shooting, I was finally able to pull 35 pounds back. So me and my uncle went out to a little chunk of private property we had right by Marshall there. And we're actually up on top of a hill glassing, and we seen a couple smaller bucks or whatever. I wasn't after anything big or anything back then. Saw a couple of smaller bucks, so we ran down off of this hill, and I only had 2 arrows with me at the time or whatever. So we ran down, got into the weeds to cut them off, and my uncle grunted the deer into about 15 yards, and I missed, and the deer didn't move. So then I grabbed my last arrow out, pulled back again, and I missed the second time, and the deer bounded maybe 5 or 10 yards and looked back at us, and my uncle handed me one of his arrows. Ended up using his arrow, and I shot the deer with his arrow. So that was kind of a wild little story for my first deer.
Wow. I did forget to mention, anyone that's out there watching the live stream version, if you have questions for either myself or Jordan, you pop those up during the comments and I can watch them right here and pop them up during the show. But with that being said, I remember my first time shooting a deer. I've said it before. I went out with my dad. He's like 20 yards away from me. I can throw a stone at him, basically. Shot right underneath the doe. I start bawling like a little baby. And he starts he went down, grabbed my arrow, and he starts climbing up my tree stand. And he's like, why are you crying? It's like, I've been practicing and practicing. And I missed. I don't like to fail. You know that about me. He said, well, that's hunting, so get the fuck used to it. And 2, that's bow hunting. So you really got to get used to it. So I use that as motivation and just kept pushing through. And a week later, I shoot a little spike 4-pointer. So it's just your very first deer, you can remember the details like it happened yesterday, basically. It's just weird how that very first hunt can happen so long ago, but you can remember every detail about it.
Absolutely.
And with that being said, though, so you're a bow hunter?
Yep. So I'm a bow hunter only. I did shoot 1 deer with the shotgun, and I just didn't really like the feeling that I got from it. It just didn't seem fair to me. I guess to each their own. I don't judge gun hunters or anything like that. I just like the challenge of having the stick and string in my hand, and I like to see their heart beating before I kill them. So, but I do want to bring up a few topics here on like the deer herd in Minnesota, I guess. I think we kind of we manage for, in the state of Minnesota, we manage kind of for a younger deer population, which I think there are several things we could possibly change to get a more mature deer population. I know we've tried a few things in the past, like antler restrictions and things like that. But so with the antler restriction, I think it's a good idea. And then I also see the downfall of it. So say you have an antler restriction, and I believe it was like the deer had to have 8 points or more. Well, you get a 1.5-year-old deer that has 8 points, and they're the deer that are getting killed. And then you got a 6-pointer, a 3.5-year-old 6-pointer running around, and he's not getting shot. Well, he's the one that's going to be breeding all your does. So then that's going to mess up your gene pool per se. So I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing to do, but I do think that it would help Another thing I think that we could possibly change in Minnesota. So in Minnesota, we have it so that you have to apply for a doe tag if you want to shoot a doe. I think it should be like South Dakota does it. I think you should have to apply for a buck tag, if anything. It just I don't see the sense in having to apply for a doe tag. I think you should have to apply for a buck tag if you're going to get an extra tag, period. So
like right now off the bat, like, so for instance, here in Michigan, you can get a combo tag and like a restricted and non-restricted one, and then you get a doe tag. So are you saying that in Minnesota, you get a buck tag right off the bat?
Yep. So in Minnesota, it's a one deer state. For bow hunters, you can shoot a buck or a doe, but you get one tag. Once you shoot a doe or a buck, you're done hunting for the year.
So what you're saying is that you should automatically get like a doe tag and then apply for a buck tag.
So that's how South Dakota does it, and I think that works very well. I think that Minnesota could greatly take advantage of changing that a little bit.
And I know we talked about it off air, where first off, if prior to knowing this about what I'm going to bring up here that Jordan said, hearing that you're a one buck state, you're thinking, oh man, look at the bucks in his background. They're killing it out there. But when I talk to Jordan, I'll let him get more into it, but it's a party state. So you can kind of share tags, and you're kind of, like I mentioned before, you're kind of finding the loophole, and it sounds like it's hurting your herd in a way.
Yeah. So we're a one buck state, but it defeats the purpose when you have guys going out buying their wife a tag, buying their daughter a tag, buying their son a tag. Let's just per se during the shotgun season. So it is rifle up north. I'm in the southwest corner of the state, so it's shotgun down here. But I've seen a lot of people going out buying several tags, which is great, and their daughters and sons are more than likely going out hunting with them, but they don't necessarily shoot the deer. So you got dad out there, and he goes and shoots, his daughter's deer, his son's deer, and his wife's deer, and then he still has a tag, doesn't end up filling his tag. Well, then he's probably going muzzleloader hunting. So I just, as Minnesota being a one buck tag state, I just don't see how that. I think it just defeats the purpose of being a one deer state. So.
Yeah, it's like I said, you're taking advantage of a loophole, and so much for having one buck state, and you're not really letting stuff grow. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but you're looking at the bucks on his wall. You're obviously doing something right, though. You're finding some pockets where these deer are at. So what are you doing? What are you looking for?
So first of all, I guess I should have got into this a little bit earlier, but I'm a landscaper, so my work is seasonal. I usually end up working end of March to the 1st of November. I kind of chose that job because of my obsession with hunting. I like to have my time off so that I can enjoy what I love to do. Which also, has its sacrifices. I have no kids. I'm not married, which I think hunting probably played a role in some of that, I guess I would say, because I live, breathe, and sleep bow hunting, I guess. When I'm not hunting, I'm fishing. When I'm not fishing, I'm working so that I can pay to go hunting and fishing. So, but yeah, I just think that, I think that the hunting situation is just I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing, but that's who I am, and that's how I was raised. I guess I got it from all angles. My stepdad, he was a big bow hunter. My dad I kind of got the fishing from my dad. He was more of the fisherman, but he loved to hunt too. And then my Uncle Randy pretty much brought me hunting every chance he could get when I was younger. So that's kind of who I got it from.
Yeah, I got hunting from my dad, and it was you only hunt with a bow. I've never shot anything with a gun, and I never plan on it. And the day I can't draw back a bow is the day I hang that up and I pick up that stupid crossbow. You know, I don't really. I know, I know. I already know. I don't want to. My dad has that situation. And it sucks.
The cross gun.
I bought him a brand new bow, and it was the 2 year before he retired from working law enforcement. He hurt his shoulder, so he couldn't draw back a bow. So now it's like, all right, now I'm here with a $2,000 bow. Well, I'm going to use it for something. I'll use it for turkey, whatever. But now he's shooting a crossbow. And the Squatch here, he made a comment here. He says, New York, it's buck with a bow, buck with, wait, hang on, make sure I'm reading this right. New York, it's buck with the bow, buck with the gun, and doe tags for each DMU area. And hello, Brett from the Squatch. What's up, Squatch? I can't wait to get you on. I've already got him scheduled for the New York week, so I'm looking forward to that day.
That's awesome.
So it sounds like every state basically has, I mean, we all kind of know, though, every state does things differently. And I never really understood the party, though, concept of that. I heard of another state doing that. I can't remember which state it was. But yeah, I never really fully believed that was a great route to go.
Right.
And Stone Soar, he made a comment here. He said, absolutely, the cross tagging is hurting our herd. Glad you brought that up. Is that something more you want to dig into there?
I think I pretty much, covered a lot of it, but and this goes for bow hunters too. You got your bow hunters that go out and they're able to hunt, all archery season, and then they'll go out with their buddies, during shotgun season, because everybody loves to get together with their buddies in a group of people and go out and hunt, and I get that. I do. I myself am a solo hunter. I like hunting by myself. If I do ever go hunting with anybody, it's usually my two little brothers, which have gotten into bow hunting really a lot lately. But the party hunting and the cross tagging is just, so like a bow hunter can go hunt the whole season bow hunting, and then he'll go out and go shotgun hunting with his buddies or whatever. Well, his buddies aren't bow hunters, so they got this tag. They got 10 days to use their tag, or otherwise they're eating tag soup. Their tag's going in the garbage. So, you got these bow hunters that'll go out for them 10 days and they'll shoot 3-4 deer for their buddies, and their buddies will tag it, and then they'll continue to hunt the rest of the archery season, which is the same, as same scenario as the firearm hunters hunting in muzzleloader season. So I think to stop that, I think Minnesota, I think you should have to pick whether you're going to hunt with a bow that year, whether you're going to hunt with a muzzleloader that year, or whether you're going to hunt with a shotgun that year. You get to pick one season, you get one tag, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't like this moving around and adjusting, and you're, like we said before, you're hurting your herd, and just stick to one thing and grow upon it. And I'm thankful that Michigan isn't like that. If I find out that Michigan starts doing that crap, I'm booking it. I'm hightailing it out of here, because our herd is basically crap as it is. I mean, to find a 140 plus deer, So in Michigan, you're broken down basically into 3 zones. The UP, it's zone 1, Mackinac Bridge, down to like Grand Rapids area. It's like the middle of the Palm area. That is zone 2. Anything south of that, zone 3. You're going to see more of your higher scoring deer in zone 3, where I live in the bottom part. Your more older, more mature deer, they're going to find those areas where no one's going to be going to. So you can get like those 7, 8-year-old deers. But our genetics here, it's just garbage. And I've talked about that in last week's show, so I'm not going to take down in that. I did want to ask, though, as a bow hunter, everyone's got their practice routine and stuff like that. So, for instance, for me, when I started growing up, my dad, he trained me how to shoot with fingers. Then I started moving into the releases and stuff like that.
Yep.
Honestly, I strongly believe that I think everyone should start when they're shooting a bow, start practicing with the fingers, because you really get the feel of how things are flowing off your hand and stuff like that. And then start practicing at short range yardages. And then once you start doing that, after a couple of years, you start building that up. Then you start moving back further, going out to 50, 60, 80. I shoot up to like 80, 85. That's where I'm going to be going, because after that point, it's just like, that's stupid. I'll go out to 100 yards for like fun of it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But for like routine practice, it's 80, 85, because then you move up to 20 yards. That's like a chip shot. So what are you doing as a bow hunter? What's your practice routine?
So like my practice routine, I like to shoot long distances, as well as repetitiously shooting, 20, 30 yards. I think that's the most important. The reason for shooting longer distances is I think it helps you shoot better while you're shooting the short distances. While we're on this topic, I kind of just wanted to bring up, out of the 30 Pope and Young deer that I've killed, I would say probably 85 to 90% of them I've killed within 15 yards. So it's kind of like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But I have had those scenarios, I shoot a HHA single pin sight. For instance, one scenario, I don't know, it was 5-6 years ago. I was hunting a deer out in, I think I was in North Dakota. Yep, I was in North Dakota. And so he's coming down the trail. I said, oh, here he is. He's toast. He's mine, So I go to draw back on him. And as I'm drawing, of course, he looks right up at me, catches me drawing, and he takes off and runs out to 60 yards. Well, good thing that summer I had practiced, that scenario. Okay, well, I'm going to set my pin at 20, and I'm going to shoot at 60 to see how high I have to raise up to let it drop in to the kill zone or whatever. And so that was an eye opener, but I did end up killing that deer. He ran out to, I think it was like 52 yards or 53 yards or something. I couldn't remember, but I had ranged the spot earlier, so I knew kind of about how far. I guessed him at 50. So I knew, okay, well, I got it at my pin at 20. If I hold it 3 inches above his back and let her rip, she's gonna drop right in there, and that happened. So, but that's another thing I like to practice with like a single pin sight. Say if you shoot a single pin sight, I would practice just keeping your pin at 20 and going and shooting at 30, 40, 50, 60, just in case if something like that were to happen, because you don't got time. Okay, you're at full draw and he busts you and he runs out to 50, 60. You're not going to be able to let down, change your slider, and then draw back. That deer is going to be in the next county by then. So I think that's something that if you shoot a single pin sight, it's worth practicing in the summer that way.
I think there was like a term for that, zero range, zero target. I can't remember the term of it, but you're basically learning how you can leave your pin at one area. So if it's like, say you leave it at your 30-yard pin, and so all right, if it's 20 yards, I have to aim here. If he's at 50, I know I got to aim there. So as long as you practice that, it sounds like that's what you're doing. Yep. I haven't done that necessarily as much because I have the UV slider pin. No, hey, Everyone out there listening, do not say a word to my wife. She does not know I bought that yet. She asked me.
Those are those cheap ones, right?
Yeah. She asked me, like, why'd your bow cost so much money? Because taxes and all this other stuff. It was because of the new bow sight. So no one say anything. But yeah, I shoot the 3-pin slider pin. That's what I've generally been using. And the lethal range for me that I'll shoot out to be was 60, 65 if I really want to. But after, if it's 55 plus, those conditions have to be prime, not a whole bunch of crosswind or anything like that. And I'm really taking into account of a lot of different things and making sure there's no other deer around, basically, so they don't spook him and move him around. And another thing, though, that I did want to bring up when I practice shooting my bow is some days throughout the week, I'll do like push-ups and jumping jacks, anything to get my heart rate beating really quick. And then I'll jump over, grab my bow real quick, and learn how to take those few deep breaths in, draw back, and shoot.
Absolutely.
You gotta prepare for those type of situations and be situationally prepared. It's one thing that the police academy really taught me well is you gotta be prepared for those uncomfortable situations. And another thing that I do, and this is kind of moving into the hunting aspect of it, we'll get here with you, Jordyn. When I'm sitting in a tree stand, I'm thinking of like a million different scenarios of what could possibly happen. I'm not just sitting there I'll sit there for like 5 minutes, like, all right, it's peaceful. I love it. Yeah, awesome. Then my brain switches and it's like game mode. All right, if the deer comes here, I got to do this. If the deer comes in this situation, it's just a million scenarios. I'm just running through my head. Are you doing anything out there while you're actually in your tree stand hunting?
I try to keep myself ready at all times, I guess. Try to stay off my phone, I guess. I have been busted a couple times while being on my phone, turn around and, oh, that's the deer I'm out here after. But yeah, I try to envision on where they're going to come from and predict on what trail they're going to be on. And then, I try to range everything prior to them coming in, so I know my yardages in case if he comes in fast or something like that and I don't have time to get a range on him. I try to range a couple different objects around my tree or whatever. But
when you're out there, what are you looking for mainly? Do you do a lot of e-scouting?
A little bit. I have Onyx and I do go on Onyx and look on Onyx. You can kind of see, have an idea. Like you can look at the pinches and the funnels and stuff like that on Onyx. But I found out that, the best way to scout is honestly boots on ground. I mean, I know that it's not good to go into an area and bump deer out of there because the chances of a big 5-year-old mature deer coming back aren't real good if he gets bumped out of his bed. But I have seen it happen several times, I guess. But I would say that, finding the sign, finding the rubs, the scrapes, the deer shit on the ground, and finding the physical sign, I would say is most important. I do a lot of my scouting. I'm big time shed hunter. I like shed hunting more than I like hunting. So I think that's where I spend most of my time scouting is while shed hunting, because you can go out there at that time of year and not have to worry about, bumping the deer and this and that. And you can see their old rubs. And if it hasn't snowed yet, you can see their old scrapes and get an idea of what the deer are doing. So I like going out during the shed season. And that's when I do like 80% of my scouting. I also like the first week in July is one of my favorite weeks to scout, I guess, before the saying knee-high corn 4th of July or whatever. I like to go out there before the corn gets too high because, I mean, I would have to say in my area it's agricultural land. You got your groves, you got a few river bottoms and little ravines and draws and stuff, but for the majority of my area, it's crops and groves, and these big bucks, they don't like to live with the other deer. A big mature buck doesn't like to go live with a bachelor group of 8 2-year-old bucks. He's going to be on the fence line in the middle of a cornfield all by himself, or possibly with one other mature deer, and that's where he's going to live until pretty much until the rut. Is what I found out.
He's like an old man. Just leave me alone.
Yep.
Just let me go downstairs and let me be alone.
They don't like hanging out with a bunch of other deer.
No. And Lone Bow Hunters, Chronicles, he made a comment here. He says, I couldn't agree more. Boots on the ground helped me shoot my buck this fall.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And I think for us here in these wintry type states, and if you're listening to this or watching this right now and you're from the southern states, well, sorry, you're screwed. Sorry, you're out of luck with this comment that I'm going to make. I do a lot of mine in the winter time when the season ends. So ours ends December 31st. So as soon as I see some good snowfall coming, that's where I'm out there, and I'm really trying to see where they're moving, how they're moving through the property, what's different about this area compared to that one. And I'll make just a bunch of notes. And that's what I've been doing for a lot of years now. And I've learned my property basically inside and out. Granted, I've gone out there and I've seen more trails, and it's like, well, I'm always standing on a trail. I'm always just standing there and I'll look to myself, looking around, and why here? What's this trail that goes anywhere? And I do that all the time. And I think you can still do that, though. I joked about being from the down south where you don't have winter. You can just get out there in the woods, man, when your season ends, and just move around. You can see where these deer are moving through, because the deer are going to take the path of least resistance.
Absolutely.
So as long as you're just out there doing the best you can and scouting, just moving through the land, that's really the best you can do. I mean, that's how you're going to get these mature bucks. And honestly, in your little home right there, I'm just in shock and awe and jealous. So, you know what, for instance, Jordan, for the rest of this show, because I'm getting kind of mad now because of all the giant deer there, just move the camera so you cover it, okay? Just cover them up.
A lot of time in the woods. I would say, for me, I would say the two most important things that's going to help a person kill a mature deer is honestly time in the woods and wind direction. 95% of the time, a big 5-year-old or mature deer will not walk with the wind at its back. 95% of the time, he's going to be walking with that wind in his nose. And I've learned, that you don't necessarily have to hunt, downwind of them. I like to hunt a prevailing wind. So say, you got your corn and your bedding here and the winds, I like to hunt where the buck thinks that he can smell everything going to that cornfield, but you're hunting just off of his wind line. So he feels comfortable coming in, and I've had the most luck hunting a prevailing wind rather than hunting, because a big deer is just not going to do that. That's how they got big. They know now, I would absolutely say wind direction is your number one thing on killing a mature buck.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Nope, you're good. So another thing that I've done, I guess, in the last few years, they got scent killer, these spray bottles, scent killer, scent blocker, you name it. You got 100 different scent sprays now to eliminate human odor. Well, I honestly think that deer are getting educated to that smell. I mean, you can spray it and you can say this and that it doesn't smell or nothing like that. but it absolutely does. If I can smell it, that deer can smell it. So I quit using all scent sprays. I will not spray my boots. I will not spray my clothes. I will not spray anything, because I've seen it with my own eyes that them deer know what that smell is, and they're educated to it now. And if you're pretty much spraying yourself with stuff that they're scared of, so I stay away from it. And I guess like a deer can smell us like we can smell a skunk, so like say a skunk walked through your house, after you left for work, a skunk came and walked through your house at noon, and you get back home from work and you open the door, and all of a sudden, boom, you smell something. That's what these deer smell when we're in their home. And you go and you saw on a branch, make shooting lanes, which I know you got to be able to shoot, don't get me wrong, but you're leaving scent on that branch, you're cutting that branch. It'd be like you having a candle on your table and coming home, and all of a sudden that candle's gone. Someone's been in your house, and you're going to know that, just like a deer is going to know that you've been in his home. So I try to keep everything as natural as possible.
You're the first person that's another hunter that I agree 100% on that with, because I remember reading a study that was done. First off, I don't remember the exact numbers, so don't quote me on it, but a deer's nose isn't that much better than a German Shepherd's nose, or just a dog's in general's nose. So it's like 1,000%, like 1,000 scent receptors in their nose more than a dog.
Yep. A white-tailed deer can smell 6 different things at the same time.
Exactly. So what happened was, and I actually think it was in Minnesota where this study was done, a canine dog, they took a guy that used no scent control, and he made him smell his shirt, whatever, whatnot. He made him go out about 100 yards. The deer tracked him. The dog tracked him and took him about, I don't know, 10 seconds, whatever, to find him. Then they took another person. He took the shower. He did all the scent control stuff, from spraying literally everything, washing it, spraying it, showering it, same thing, deodorant, whatever. Dog found him in like 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So really, if a dog is able to still find you, and so you got a very short time frame between those two, a deer's not going to really be not much different. So what's the freaking point? So I'd much rather feel more natural, and when I do with my scent control is I hang up all my hunting clothes in like September or August. I'll hang them up outside for as long as I possibly can, so I start getting the fresh air with it.
Yep.
The only thing that I will do is wash it in the washer, and then I'll hang it up outside, and that is it. I'm not even showering with that scent stuff.
Yep. So I agree with you there. I put my stuff in totes usually, and depending on like what state I'm going to be hunting, like North Dakota, there's a lot of sage out there. So I try to, when I'm out there hunting, I usually gather up a bunch of sage, and then if I know that I'm going to North Dakota, I'll wash all my hunting stuff, and I'll throw my clothes right in my tote with a bunch of sage in it, because then obviously you'll smell like sage and their environment. But that isn't going to work. Say you go and put a bunch of sage in your tote and you put all your clothes in there, and then you go and try to hunt Minnesota. That isn't going to work like it does for North Dakota, because we don't have as much sage in Minnesota, and it's more of a cover scent at that point than blending into the environment. But a deer, cover scent, I don't like using cover scents either, because no matter what, a deer is going to smell it and go, wow, what's that? Like that spray they got, the vanilla spray, the nose jammer or whatever. I've seen several people use that, and I'm just like, man, I don't know how or why you would think that that's okay to put that all over your hunting clothes. But I mean, I guess I don't know the science behind it, but just thinking about it, I just don't know how that works. So
I've never been a huge fan of them. I'm not going to spend my money on that. I'd much rather spend my money on the gear and stuff like that to be more tactical with it.
Right.
And for instance, I've seen those products on TV, and that's how they get you, though. I don't care what there might be people out there that are like they believe it 100%. Let me
Yep.
know how you feel about it, but this is my opinion about it. They're gonna put that product up there, for instance, nose jammer. Oh yeah, I sprayed this stuff right here, and then not even 3 seconds of a split second, a big giant buck comes and they shoot it. That's how they're getting.
They think it was the nose jammer, but
Exactly. So
little
they're
do they know that big buck was going to come anyways.
Exactly. So they're trying to paint the picture of, ooh, we came to this and make your brain. That's just how marketing stuff works.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to fall for that. And I think it's just, like I said, if people are die hard by it, I'm not saying anything, but that's just how I see it. And I'm not going to waste my time. But at the end of the day, my hunting style, I don't, it's wit versus wit. I don't want to do shit. I want to see how I can beat them at their own game. And I'm not going to do anything fancy.
Yep. The only time I'd use scent, I'm a big believer in using decoys. If, from November 1st till December 1st, if I have a chance to use a decoy, I'm using one. Like I said, it probably honestly only works probably 50% of the time. But when it works great. You're going to have that deer, come in at, 10, 15 yards where you want him. He's going to be concentrated on that decoy. So sometimes it spooks them. Don't get me wrong. I've had big bucks come and see that decoy and gone, which really sucks when that happens. But the times that it does work, it's worth it because, they lock into that decoy. They're a dead deer pretty much, 95% of the time. So
how are you setting up these decoys? What exactly are you doing with them, and how are they being successful for you?
So that's another thing I like using a decoy for is so depending on the wind direction, you can kind of honestly set that decoy up to get the deer to come so that he doesn't wind you, so he doesn't get downwind of you. Because the deer, 90% of the time, a big buck is going to come at another big buck head on or quartering to. They're never going to come in from the ass end. Very rarely. They might try to do a circle, but if they've seen a decoy before, but 90% of the time they're fired up. They're coming ears back, posturing right into that decoy. And so I try to set, I see which way the wind direction is. I always have the head of the decoy facing me so that the deer will come around, give me a broad side shot or a quartering away. I won't take a quartering 2-shot. It's just, I've had some bad luck and I'll never do it again.
But wouldn't you want to set and I'm not, it's just a question. Wouldn't you want to set the decoy broadside to you though, if they're doing a giant circle around?
So broadside is
their
okay.
broadside.
I like setting it facing me because then 90% of the time they usually try to do a semicircle. Like they won't come right on at the buck, but they'll try, and a big buck will try to get downwind of that decoy also and smell what deer it is and if knows that deer or not. And if the deer is all testosterone up, he can smell that, so he'll try to get downwind of the decoy. But if you set yourself up and the decoy up to where that deer can get downwind of the decoy and not you, that's typically how I like to set my decoy up.
When are you using the decoy? Because honestly, I've never used a decoy.
I November 1st is probably the earliest I'll use it. And then I'll use it all the way up until, December 1st. That second rut usually kicks off around Thanksgiving or the first week in December. So I'll use it later on. Like in Minnesota, the deer have all been banged at by then, and they're running from a mile and a half away when they see your pickup truck. So the decoy doesn't work in Minnesota per se as well as it does in other states. Another reason for that is because Our buck to doe ratio around my area here in Minnesota, I would say it's about 9-1, 10-1. 10 does per one buck. In other states, like South Dakota, North Dakota, you're looking at their buck to doe ratio is probably more like 4-1. So that means that they have more of a challenge to get that doe because there's more bucks and not a million, does to where they don't have to worry about this buck. They'll just go find another doe. So that's where the decoy comes into play for me. Like on a lot of out of state hunts where you have a different buck to doe ratio, like a 4-1 or a 3-1 rather than a 10-1, because they just don't have to fight for the does as much when there's less bucks and more does, obviously.
Are you using the decoys in the deep woods, or are you using them more kind of on like field edges and stuff like that?
So I like to put my decoy out where the deer can see it from, a long distance away or whatever. I like to rattle when I'm using my decoy. But I have also killed the second biggest buck of my life using a decoy in the middle of the woods. I brought my decoy in the middle of the woods. I was sitting there. I had a 2-year-old 8-pointer, 110-inch 2-year-old messing around with some does to the right of me, and I literally had my decoy right at the base of my tree. I guess the main reason I brought it with is just to try to keep, it was going to be a tight shot. I knew that my shot was going to be within 20 yards because I was in some real thick cover. So the main reason I brought that decoy there that day was just to keep that deer's, eyes and ears off of me while I'm drawing, because I knew it was going to be tight quarters or whatever. So, but I was watching this 2-year-old off to my right, and all of a sudden I heard something. There was a fence line about, I'd say it's about 15 yards in front of me. And I caught movement and I heard something. I look, and I think it's 162 inches, but he was at 10 yards posturing my decoy before I even knew that he was there. So, and by the time I grabbed my bow, because I couldn't move very fast or anything because he was already right there. If I wouldn't have had a decoy, I would have never killed that deer. So, but I grabbed my bow and was able to draw with him at 10 yards. And by the time I got drawn back, he was nose to nose with my decoy, like just about ready to plow him over. But
have you brought that decoy out in the woods and put it underneath your stand since then?
I actually haven't. To be honest with you, I haven't done that since then. I don't know what made me bring it out that night. I guess I was very, very discouraged. I had been hunting for like a month and things just weren't going my way. I was just so ready to give up. And then, that's when it happens too, is just when you're about ready to throw in the towel. That's usually when it happens. So
yeah, keep your mind on the grind and just stay focused and just never give up. Really.
Absolutely.
And heck, I know I've said before, there's a lot of times where I just haven't seen a deer, and heck, I didn't see a deer for 2 to 3 years. Didn't see shit. And I was like, I quit, Dad. I'm not seeing shit. He's like, well, get used to it. And I'm like, this sucks, man. So then I was like, all right. Then that's when I started learning my property more and figuring out where they're at and stuff. But I just used that as motivation, really, to learn more and read more and just become a better hunter and a better person out there. And I've missed my fair share of deer. And for people out there that say, well, I've never missed a deer. Well, one, you either haven't been hunting long or you haven't taken a lot of shots.
Right.
And I think the ones that I've missed and the ones that I haven't been able to harvest are the ones that stick with me the most, more than the ones that I remember all the details about it, but those ones just suck, and they will just live with me forever.
Yep.
And that's bow hunting. That's just hunting in general, no matter what. And I think it's mainly because as hunters, if you don't feel that deep down in you, there's something wrong with you. Because as a hunter, you care more making sure you take that quick, clean, ethical kill because you're taking an animal's life. And all hunters, I believe, feel that regret that they can't find that deer, and it's the worst feeling in the world. And then you find out, like, the neighbor ended up shooting him, like, 2 weeks later. She's like, "Oh, thank gosh, he's not
Yeah,
something happened or whatever, and he shoot him." So I'm like, "All right, thank you." I feel better about myself in some way.
absolutely. Yep.
But with that
So
being said, I
one,
was gonna ask, what was
go
that?
ahead. One topic I was going to bring up here, that I had thought about, while we're kind of on the subject is, like the youth hunts now. I'm not talking about the youth hunt, but I'm talking about like, so Minnesota does a lot, to get the youth involved, which I think is 100% awesome. But what they're doing is, or what I've seen a lot happening is, they're taking these 12-year-old kids, and they're having these special youth hunts where they can go into these state parks or this and that where nobody else gets to hunt. And don't get me wrong, I know the kids need to be out there, and that's not what I'm getting at. But you bring a 12-year-old kid into a state park, and he shoots a 180-inch deer his first time sitting, and then he goes out and he hunts for the next 5 years and doesn't see a deer of that caliber, let alone even close to that caliber. He's going to lose interest in hunting. He's going to be like, well, what the heck? I killed that big buck the first time I sat. Now I haven't seen anything the last 5 years. He's going to lose interest in hunting. And I think they need to go about that a little differently. I think they should bring these kids into these state parks and harvest does first.
Or like a small buck.
Or a small buck, or or let them shoot a doe first, and then if they kill a doe, then maybe let them shoot a buck or something. But I think it's going to ruin them hunters that are going in, and they're going to be excited to go hunting the next year because they shot this big deer with their dad and this and that. But then when they go out and they don't see nothing or shoot anything, of that caliber for the next 4 or 5 years, I think they're gonna lose interest in it.
No, I agree with you, because however long you've been hunting in general, let's just say you take someone that's been hunting for 10 years and they haven't shot a deer over 100 inches or whatever. And finally that 10th year comes around, they shoot a 140 plus deer. All right, so they've worked their way up, and now that's something that they're chasing. So they've been through the grind. They know what it's like to truly hunt. Unless you're hunting in a fenced-in area, that's a different story. But we're talking about people
Right.
that are out there hunting in public land, and you're out there chasing these deer. At shooting that 150+ inch deer is a rare thing. They see it on TV. They make it out like it happens all the fucking time, when in reality it doesn't. It's hard to see the percentage. I think it's like, to see a deer 185 inches plus, I think is like less than 30% out of like all the deer. So it's like seeing unicorns basically, unless you're like Lee Lakowski, have farms like property like that. That's different. But for me, I have an 80-acre lot, and I don't have the ability to do all that necessarily. So you really gotta, that's something you're gonna be chasing, and something that I agree with you. You're just gonna get people out of hunting when it doesn't happen all the time.
Right. Yep.
And Dirt LTD, he made a comment here. He says, "It seems like a kid took your buck."
No, that's not what happened. I just like I said, I don't think it's going to be good for that kid down the line as a hunter. I'm sure, it's instant gratification. You go out and shoot a great big deer, but he's not, the chances of him shooting another deer like that on public or private land that's not a state park is pretty rare.
It's hard to do. It takes a lot of time and work and preparation and knowledge, really, to put yourself in those type of situations instead of someone else just taking you out there, really. And yeah, you really just got to put in the time and work for it.
Right.
The one question though I did want to ask though, what's your hunting seasons like out there in Minnesota? What are there for archery, gun, stuff like that?
So that was another probably the most important topic that I wanted to talk about tonight. So Minnesota we could do so much better. So right now, we have archery season, and then we have a new youth hunt that is the end of October. So they're already getting pressured by the archery hunters, which starts second week in September. But then on top of that, you got your youth hunt, which a lot of people are doing it now, which I think it's very important. But that is the third week in October, or the last week in October. And then the deer and mind you, this is like right when the deer need to start breeding and doing their thing or whatever. And then you got, 10 days where they're getting pounded at and chased down and you name it. It's slug season is pretty much the Wild West here in Southwest Minnesota. I mean, it can be. You got your guys that'll go out and sit, but, a lot of the guys with big groups and stuff, they surround sections and push deer and this, that, and the other, which if that's how you want to hunt, more power to you, that's fine or whatever. But so then, you got 10 days or 2 weeks of shotgun season right during the peak of the breeding season. And then they get 1 week to take a break, these deer. And then you get 3 weeks of muzzleloader season after they're already worn down from the rut. They need to go to the food to survive because it's cold out. They're worn down. So, you got, and then you got, 3 weeks of muzzleloader season. So pretty much that's 6 to 7 weeks during their entire breeding season that they're getting gunned at, and chased around. And I don't think it's very fair to the deer at all. So, I think there are a few things that we could do to prevent this or to help our state out. I mean, I honestly think we could be the next Minnesota or the next Iowa, damn near, if we simply changed our seasons up. I think we should do it like Kansas does and and I'm a bow hunter. I think we should have an early muzzleloader season, September 1st through September 14th. Go ahead, get out there. I would agree that, and I'm a bow hunter, so I would agree with having an early muzzleloader season, and then moving your shotgun season back to like Iowa does after the breeding season, like December 1st through the 10th, so that these deer they can breed naturally. Because right now it's not fair to the deer, and they're just getting pounded. It's not good. And then now, you got, last year we opened up crossbow hunting. Everybody, you don't have to be disabled or anything. Anybody can grab a crossbow and go out hunt. And I was reading, I don't want to get too into numbers here or anything, because I don't know my numbers real well, but I was reading something where I had seen that 75% of the archery killed deer last year were killed with the crossbow. So, I mean, and half of those crossbow hunters are more than likely first-year hunters that went out and bought a crossbow and,
or someone that hunts with a gun and
want a longer time to hunt. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Stone Sour, I popped his comment up here and he said, if we can stop the cross tagging and move the firearm season, we could just be like Iowa, South Dakota.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it would substantially help if we moved our seasons around a little bit. It would help tremendously.
And I've been hearing that more and more from people where their gun season is right in the middle of the rut. And I don't know if you want to say it's like a jealousy or whatever like that, because people out there gun season and they get to hunt these deer right smack dab in the middle of the rut. It's more of we just want a chance more to hunt with our bows in that rut season and push back that gun season because you guys can shoot up to long distances compared to us where we have to get that deer basically 30 yards or in.
Yep.
And I I think a lot more states are trying to push their gun season back. 'Cause I know Iowa does it. South Dakota sounds like they do it. I know Maryland does it. And I know it will never fucking happen here in Michigan. No, November 15th in deer camp. I honestly feel Michigan started that whole thing with Fred Bear, Ted Nugent, and all them.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that. So us moving it, I will never see it in my lifetime. But
Right.
would I love to? Yes. And I remember telling my wife, she was like, because I don't hunt with a gun, and I hunt October 1st all up to November 14th because everyone that hunts on that property with a gun, it's all flooded there. So I just back away. She's like, you can't hunt there? I was like, I can, but I'm not gonna fill up out there because everyone's out there now. So like,
Right.
that's not fair. It's the middle of the rut. Like, you're preaching to the choir, hon. So
Yeah. And to me, it's not necessarily because I hunt with a bow and they hunt with a gun. To me, it's overall like to get a better, more mature deer population.
yeah, you want better genetics out there.
Right. Yep.
And I desperately, Michigan desperately needs that. Brian Davis, yo, what's up, Brian, from yesterday? Looks like I don't know, Van Overbeke 12. Minnesota's shotgun season makes us Minnesota boys buy a South Dakota and North Dakota tag to get away from the mayhem and be able to get in a tree during the rut without helmets and Kevlars.
Yep. You're absolutely right there. Lead starts flying in Minnesota and I'm heading west.
I remember you talked to me prior to the show. You were hunting in North Dakota and you're successful for 14 straight years, right?
Yep. I got a buck Pope and Young deer. I'm 14 for 14 in North Dakota. Last year it was a little tougher last year. I guess not this last winter, but the winter before that, they had like a 75, maybe 80% winter kill out there. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I kind of feel bad and felt bad even going out there and getting a tag, but I kind of just I didn't know before I got my tag that the winter was that bad because I was out there shed hunting like the end of March. And it wouldn't be last year, the year before, and there was deer everywhere. I mean, I was shed hunting on a herd of 3,500 deer. And so I was jacked. I mean, I was like, this is going to be the best year ever, you know. I get out there and go talk to a couple of landowners that I have gotten permission and gotten to know throughout the years. And they're like, dude, you might as well turn around and go home. I said, all the deer are fucking dead out here. I said, what? I said, I was out here shed hunting. There were like rabbits everywhere. He goes, no, we had a huge, I guess they got a huge snowstorm in like the middle of April or something. And the deer had somewhat shed their winter coats. And the winter was it was one blizzard after another out there. There was 10 feet of standing snow. And so, yeah, I talked to a warden out there that he said that he physically had to go out onto this public land area, and he had to physically walk up to these deer and shoot them because they couldn't get out of their bed. They were so weak from the long winter and the last snow in April. And it took probably 70 to 80% of the deer population. And a lot of them that I noticed, it was a lot of the big mature bucks that were worn down from the rut. A lot of does made it, which is good. So they should bounce back, but I'm thinking it's going to be, 4 or 5 years before you're going to go out there and see what we were seeing before. 'Cause it takes 5 years to grow, mature deer for one. And yeah, so it was sad to see, and I was hesitant on even killing a deer, but I was out there, and it was actually my 4th trip out there. I wasn't going to kill anything. I was targeting one deer. Long story short, I ended up hitting this deer that I was after in the shoulder at 15 yards. It was big time heartbreaker. I don't know. When I drew back on him, I'm like, you're mine. He was so close. I tried to tuck it in, too close to that shoulder. I tried to heart shoot him, and I was using a rage, and I know better. I should have just shot him in the rib cage, but I tried to tuck it too close to that shoulder and ended up hitting him. And my arrow only penetrated literally like an inch to a half an inch. It hit him. He jumped up and it bounced out. And I knew right away what I had done. It's like, shit. So then I got down, and I did look for blood and followed him as much as I could. But I knew, with only having an inch of penetration, that he was fine. So the next day I went back out there, because after I had hit that deer, that was the one deer I was out there for. I was like, it's either him or nothing, so I was pissed off. I said, screw it. I'm getting out of here. I walked the 2.5 miles back to the truck, and then I said, you know what? I'm going to go out there in the morning. I'm going to hunt till noon, grab my tree stand, and get out of here and call it a year in North Dakota. That was my year. I was discouraged. I said that was the one deer I wanted to shoot, and I totally messed it up. Went out there, sat in my tree stand, and I'd say it was about 10:30 in the morning. I had about 145-inch 10-pointer come in, and I was able to shoot him. He came on the same trail, stood in the same spot as the deer that I was after, and I ended up killing that deer. So, and it was during the rifle season. So, I mean, it was fun, and I was happy, but at the same time, I felt kind of bad for shooting a deer when the deer population wasn't where it needed to be. But with that being said, I guess it was during rifle season. I was hunting it's a 1,600 square acre piece of public land, and I brought my deer cart out there with me. And when I got back to the corral, there's 13 or 14 guys with rifles sitting in the corral wondering, how in the hell did you go out and kill that deer with that bow and arrow? And they said, we've been out here for a week with rifles, and we haven't been able to kill anything. We haven't seen shit. And so I got really lucky is what it comes down to. But
Well, see, the problem is you were using a rage.
yes,
You should have been using a MAGNUS broadhead, man.
So yeah, they are good broadheads. The next day, I switched from a rage to a mega meat, and that mega meat blew right through that other deer like it was butter.
Oh, nice.
The best blood trail I've ever seen. It was just looked like someone went through and dumped out a 5-gallon bucket of red paint. So,
well, way to stick with it though, man, and just don't let the small things get you down, and basically just keep going at it.
Yep. It was my 4th trip out there too. So,
man, I gotta get out to North Dakota now.
It's a wonderful state. They open early, so you get a chance to go out there 1st of September, usually first weekend in September, or last weekend in August sometimes. But state you can go out and try to shoot a velvet buck. So I've killed 3 velvet bucks out there. Everything else I've had to come back during the rut. Try to make a quick weekend. The first cold snap we get in October, I usually run out there on a weekend, and I've been able to kill a few very nice deer in October out there also. But the majority of the deer I've shot out there have been, first week in November. And their rifle season out there is also like the 7th or the first week in November. So it's tricky going out there. I usually get laid off from work like the 1st of November. So I got usually 7 days to go out there and get it done before the rifle hunters are out there. And where I hunt, it's a big, huge piece of public land, but I shit you not, opening morning rifle season, there's 50 guys with rifles that walk out there. So there's
That's
no
insane.
Yeah. Then the following weekend it slows down a little bit, but it's crazy just watching them guys walk out there. It's like, you guys, oh my goodness, like, shoot each other. I don't know.
Orange Army.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, we're near the end of the show. I want to ask, I always ask the guests, is there a story or a topic that you didn't get to share tonight or that we didn't get to cover tonight?
I could probably tell you a story about when my most interesting deer hunting story, I guess I should say. I almost died. So, but I'll start off. Yeah, it was, I didn't almost die, but it could have been bad. So, me and my stepdad were out. It was my first year in North Dakota, I believe. And we were out scouting, driving around because we had planned on getting out there and hunting, but we hadn't, it was our first time being out there. We didn't know what to do, where to go, this, that, or the other. So we decided we were just going to drive around that night and glass from the road and come up with a game plan for the morning. So we were glassing this public, and I saw, 4 or 5 nice shooter bucks out in this tree strip in the middle of this section. And it's November 26th. And the temperature was probably, I think it was like 10 degrees or maybe even a little colder than that. But so we seen these deer the night before out there, and I said, you're dropping me off here. I'm going out there at 4 a.m. I'm setting my stand. I'm going to kill that deer. So this is this is probably 20 years ago. So I didn't have a cell phone at the time. So the plan is he was going to drop me off, and then he was going to go down about 5-6 miles and hunt another piece of public. And he was going to be back at noon to pick me up, and we were going to have something to eat and go back out. So he drops me off at 4 a.m, and it's a full moon. And the night before, I didn't really pay too much attention to how I was going to access this tree strip out in the middle of the section. I was more concentrated on the deer and which one I wanted to try to kill. So I got dropped off, and I'm making my way out there. I got, my stand, all my gear, everything, carrying it out there. 4 a.m, and it's full moon, so I don't have my headlamp on, because if I can get away without using my headlamp, I usually do. So I'm walking, and all of a sudden I got, my knee boots on or whatever, my rubbers on, and I'm walking, and I start, going. It's a wet area, kind of sloughy area, and I start going in the water a little bit, and the water's starting to get deeper. It's about halfway up my boot now. So I looked down and could see, the water, and then the moon was shining off of it. So I could see what I thought was like grass and weeds about 20 yards in front of me. So I was like, all right, it turns to land right up here. I'll be fine. I'm just going to keep walking straight at this tree strip. So I keep going about another 20 yards, and all of a sudden it's getting close to the top of my boots. And I'm like, man, I could see the grass. And then I got down again, and sure shit, I could see what I saw before. And it looked like it was about, 10 yards in front of me. So I kept going forward. Next thing you know, the water starts filling my boots up. So I panicked with all my gear on. And instead of turning around, running back to where I had came from, I panicked and tried to run forward to get to this dry land that I thought was there. Well, turns out it was cattails that I was seeing and not grass. And I was about belly button to nipple deep in freezing ass cold water with no ride, no vehicle to warm up, nothing. So I'm like, shit. I'm in trouble here, boys. I didn't know what to do. So I turned around quick, and luckily there was it was like a hay field that had been cut earlier on in the year or whatever. They had a bunch of hay bales stacked up all over the place. So I ran up to one of them hay bales, stripped down to my underwear pretty much, or my first base layer. And I was wearing like 5-6 layers because it was cold. It was like 10 degrees max. And So I took all that hay and I started shoving hay in all of my layers, and I layered myself out. I looked like a damn scarecrow walking back to the trees or whatever. But so I sat at this hay bale for like 5 minutes. I'm like, what? I might as well go hunting. I'm not going to get picked up till noon. No sense sitting next to this hay bale when I'm going to be just as cold sitting, up in my tree. And I got to keep moving. So I walked. I went. At this time, it got a little bit lighter out now, so I can kind of see what I'm doing. So I walk all the way around, which ended up being a slough. Walked around this slough, went and set my tree stand up, got in my tree stand, sitting there for about 10 minutes. And I'm like, I'm going to die. It's cold. Like my whole body was like just going crazy, couldn't stand up hardly because my legs were shaking so bad. I'm like, well, I got to do something to stay warm. So I decided I was going to hit the horns together. So I hit the horns together. For about 5 minutes, I just rattled as hard as I could to try to get my blood flowing a little bit. All of a sudden, I look up, and here he come. I think it wasn't a huge deer, but it was like a 130-inch 8-pointer. Came right into 10 yards, and I killed him that morning. So that was probably the most memorable hunts. I killed him, and of course, I got a little warmer after I killed him. But then I went and followed him and found him, and screaming and hooting and hollering, and went back to the road and waited for another hour and a half, 2 hours for my stepdad to get back. But he showed up and he looks at me. He's like, what the hell happened to you? I got hay sticking out all over the place and soaking wet, And then he noticed that one of my arrows was bloody or whatever. So then it's like, oh, you got one? That's awesome. So we went out and recovered my deer. And yeah, that was probably the most interesting hunt that I've ever had.
Wow. Getting nearly submerged water, going out and looking like a scarecrow.
It was cold.
About a hunt, man.
Let me tell you.
Oh man, that's amazing, dude. Congratulations, though.
Yeah, it was a fun hunt. Or not really fun, but it was a memorable hunt for sure. So
Right. Well, Jordan, I just want to say thank you for that story. Thank you for coming on the show. It means a lot to me, man. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come on with us. And for anyone that wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
I also have a group called Big Bone Outdoors on Facebook. So if you want to check that out, that'd be sweet. Otherwise, yeah, just message me on Facebook if you want to talk hunting or anything, or you got something that you want to bring up as far as the rules and stuff. I think we as hunters kind of need to get together. If we're ever going to see anything actually happening, we got to come together as a whole and as a community and see if we can get some of them things changed. Otherwise, we don't stand a chance against the lobbyists and all those guys. So we need to come together as a community if we want to improve our deer herd.
Brian Davis here. Before I let you go, Dakotas are fun to hunt, tree stands, or spot and stalk.
So North Dakota, I use tree stands mainly. South Dakota, I'm more of a spot and stalk type of hunter, just because of the lay of the land. North Dakota, the piece of public I hunt, they're big gulches. I mean, they're big gulches, full of trees. And then South Dakota, I hunt a lot of I would say grasslands. You see a lot of big deer sitting, they'll go and take a doe from somewhere and bring her out and sit on a fence line. So South Dakota, I would say I'm more of a spot and stalk hunter, and North Dakota, I'm more of a tree stand hunter.
Well, now I know what to do when I move to those states to hunt them. Well, not move, but when I go out there and start hunting them.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, we'll stay in touch. Thank you again for coming on the show. Greatly appreciated. And I hope you have a wonderful night, man. And I look forward to talking to you again, brother.
That sounds good, Brett. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
See you, Jordan.
Yep. Take care.
Oh, man. Talk about a wild ride on a hunt when you're nearly submerged in water and you're like, oh, shit. Oh, man. Well, that concludes today's episode of episode 76. Hope you guys learned a little more about Minnesota hunting. Thank you, everyone that's tuned in for tonight's show, giving your feedback and stuff like that. It means a lot to us here at Whitetail Advantage. Make sure to go check us out at our website, whitetailadvantage.com. And one thing I do like to point out, though, is we update who our guests are going to be for that coming week. We generally do it sometime through the weekend, usually on Thursdays. We generally update the week coming up. If it says ask the audience, I've said this before, we don't have a guest scheduled for that day. And it's us telling you guys out there, if you want to come on the show, you're more than welcome. I've said it before, I will never tell anybody no that wants to come on. I'm always going to say yes. So you don't have to be necessarily from that state that we're covering. You can be from wherever, and you can come on the show. But with that being said, make sure to go use the code GP10 at Gilly Puck and get 10% off their products. Go check out MAGNUS Broadheads, and you can catch all of our previous episodes on any of your podcast listening platforms, and you can also catch us on Waypoint TV. And thank you again, everyone. Make sure you put your quarter in the slot machine. Everyone that's out there doing it, thank you so much. Thank you, though, to everyone that's supporting the show and watching and tuning in. And we're going to kick it out tonight and see you guys tomorrow for episode 77 with another Jordan.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.